Oh, and we're pleased to have with us Bill Hild from Consumer Research. He's on the line. And Mr. Hild, welcome to Radioactive.
It's great to be with you today.
Good. Did I pronounce the last name right?
You didn't, but it's a common mispronunciation. It is not a problem at all.
Is it
Hild? But
Hild.
If it was the W, you would look like Wild. So everyone is making the right assumption.
So, well, very good. Well, Bill Hild, welcome to Radioactive. I understand your organization, Consumer Research, has filed some kind of a legal document all the way up to the Supreme Court involving the NRA. Could you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Well, this pertains to the NRA versus Vullo case that's been going on for years now. Maria Vullo was a New York State official. She was the superintendent of financial services, and she used her power to badger financial services companies into debanking and deinsuring the National Rifle Association, such that the goal was to cut them off from the financial services that all of us need to operate, but certainly a organization as large as National Rifle Association does. And this was politically motivated, it was targeted, it was vicious. And so the National Rifle Association found out about it, sued Ms. Vullo, and she claimed that this was within the purview of state action by New York. In other words, this was entirely proper for a New York State official to do, is within their job duties. This went all the way to the Supreme Court. We filed an amicus brief in that first case, and I'm glad to say the National Rifle Association won. The Supreme Court decided that she was not doing what state officials are allowed to do. Now, this is now going back up to the Supreme Court because they have to answer a second question. I think it's a very, very important one. It's whether Ms. Vullo has what they call qualified immunity in her misconduct as a New York State official. Qualified immunity is the legal protection that we give to our firemen and our police officers when they are making life and death split-second decisions on the street with violent criminals. Mm-hmm. We don't want them to be personally liable if they make a mistake. What Ms. Vullo wants is for that protection to be applied to her vicious, targeted, politically motivated misconduct. The court already agrees what she did was wrong. The question now is, can she personally be punished for it? And we've put in another amicus brief in support of the National Rifle Association's position because we're the nation's oldest consumer protection organization, and we've spent the last 5 to 6 years focusing mainly on the misconduct of financial services companies like banks, debanking conservatives for their values or their Christian beliefs. And if Maria Vullo can be given qualified immunity when she used the power of the state to help get people debanked, then that is a affront to the rights of consumers across the entire country. So we are very motivated. We want to see the NRA win in this case, and we would like not just New York officials, not Ms. Vullo, but any official who tries to use their power to debank and cut off financial services from people for politically motivated reasons. We want that person punished. We don't think that the same protections that apply to police officers and firemen should apply to some pencil pusher pushing a political agenda in City Hall.
Well, and the point is, if they can do it to the NRA, they can do it to anybody. And I guess she actually were trying to convince banks to not accept NRA business, which is they do have a lot of funding from different groups, and you need banking services to carry on your mission. And wow, she tried to derail it, didn't she?
That's exactly right. And you bring up a great point, which is if they can do this to a group as large as the NRA. Now, the NRA is still small compared to all these mega corporations, but at least they're large enough. They could get lawyers. They could fight this. They could go all the way to the Supreme Court. What happens if they do it to you and me or to the average American because of our conservative or Christian beliefs? We don't have that type of recourse. We can't take it all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't have that kind of money. I assume most of your listeners don't either. So what we need is the danger of enforcement and personal liability for these officials when they engage in something. We already agree. The court already agrees. This was misconduct. This was wrong. This is not something that a state official can do. But if you don't put teeth to that, if it doesn't potentially lead to personal liability where she can be sued or the official can be sued, then there's just not really a whole lot that can be done. And so this is a very, very we always hear about dangers to our democracy. This is a danger to democracy. This is a danger to democracy. If government officials can use their power to get you removed from banking service, financial services, then like how are we going to have a democracy? Because anytime you sue them, they'll say, I have qualified immunity. You've got to sue the state of New York. And I just don't think that's a country we want to live in. So that's why we put in our amicus brief. We're not a party to the case, just to be clear, but we think that the rights of consumers across the country is at stake here. And so we hope that the judges will agree, as they did in the first round of this case. They will agree they need to go even farther and strip this woman of qualified immunity, and any government official who puts pressure on financial services companies to debank someone because of their political views, they need to be held personally liable.
Yes, so let's do a scenario here where, let's say the Supreme Court rules that she can be held liable, and if another state official were to try it, the original ruling already has set precedent, and then if they try it and it's found that they did violate the law, then they can be sued. This would send a chilling effect to state officials who like to censor people or punish them for their way they think and believe. So this is very important.
This is exactly, you stated it perfectly. That's exactly the case, because it's not just about whether this one individual can be held liable. It's about when any state or local official uses their power to try and get someone debanked. This is going to send a great message, an important message, and hopefully a chilling message to any government official who would be trying to engage in this. And this is not something, we're a nonpartisan organization, so I'm not making a political statement, I'm just making a judgment of what I've seen on the ground. This is not something that conservatives and Republicans typically do. I'm sure there have been cases of people who don't like, something that falls outside of Republican or conservative politics. But generally speaking, this has been a tactic we have seen used routinely on the left by Democrats for the last 10 to 15 years to try to hassle and make trouble for conservatives who are just engaging in either their day-to-day life or expressing their political views. In the case of National Rifle Association, there have been a number, it goes as far as in June on CNBC, Donald Trump revealed to the world that both J.P. Morgan Chase and the Bank of America had debanked him during his time out of office. And Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, was asked to come on that program, and during coming on that program, he admitted that was true, and that he had gotten pressure from the Biden administration, which sadly he caved to. You would hope someone like him would have more backbone, but in any case, he got pressure from government officials to debank the President of the United States. So if this goes as high as the President of the United States being debanked because of political pressure, this is a real problem if we are going to continue to live in something resembling a democracy. And I think those government officials across the country who are engaging in this need to know that if they get caught, they could be held personally liable. They could lose their homes. They could lose their bank accounts, because what they are doing is just like if a police officer went over and shot somebody out of nowhere and then tried to claim that they had qualified immunity because they're a police officer. We would not extend that protection to a police officer actively engaged in a aggressive crime. It's reserved for situations where they're already in some sort of law enforcement situation. It's a life or death, second by second situation, and we don't want them second guessing or worried that they're going to get sued if they do the thing that they think they need to do. That is not this situation. These officials are not engaged in that. They are aggressively going out and attacking their own citizens.
And if without the teeth, without this second opinion that the Supreme Court should rule on, then they, even though it's now clear it's a violation, state officials could do it. And then if they ruin and destroy somebody's life and the person wants some kind of legal recourse, there would be none. They'll just say, exactly. Just say, I'm sorry I destroyed your life. And
right.
Hey, thank you for coming by. This is very important. What's the New York, the NRA is a New York chartered corporation, isn't it?
At least it was at the time. I know that after this unfortunate set of events, they may have moved their state of incorporation, because you've got so many government officials, like, for example, the State's Attorney General, Letitia James, who've said they've targeted the NRA and tried to destroy them. So they need to get, if they're still there, they need to get out. When we started getting more active and pushing back against big corporations, we moved our state of incorporation out of New Jersey, which of course we realized made us vulnerable to this kind of thing. But no one should be, undergoing what the National Rifle Association has had to deal with.
Hey, if you hear from them, tell them come to West Virginia because we're always free. Hey, one more thing before we let you go. This is a topic, and this is something maybe your organization doesn't touch on, but it was a big discussion here for many years. In fact, there's legislators that are going to introduce it. Many states are legalizing cash. In other words, they have laws that if somebody has cash, if they're debanked or underbanked because of they don't want to pay the high fees to have a checking account, there's a lot of like for our football games here in Bluefield. If you have cash, you cannot get in. I don't know. Does your organization even touch on that?
We haven't taken a position on that exact question, but we generally support anything that pushes back on the ability for large banks and financial institutions to force down a far left agenda using their market share. And those laws are aimed at preventing that because unfortunately, the largest banks and largest asset managers and largest insurers in this country have decided that they want to become political utilities for the Democratic Party. And so I haven't looked at that specific policy, but generally speaking, we're for anything that would protect people's rights and their ability to go about their daily lives free of hassle from far-left banking institutions. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a tremendous idea in the sense that it makes sure that people have a right to not have to deal with J.P. Morgan Chase and Bank of America.
Mm-hmm. This is Russ Hatfield. I'm appreciative of all that you do. I grew up knowing about the NRA. My dad belonged to it ever since I was, probably before I was born. And when I started, buying a weapon or somebody gifting me with one, I joined the NRA, and I've had it most of my adult life. Of course, we're Hatfield, so we have to have NRA helping us. Yeah. His family comes from the feud. So
wow.
Hey,
but
I have never hurt or been hurt by McCoy. No. But we're friends.
But I'm glad y'all buried the hatchet.
Yes, I would defend them now.
Russ, imagine if you said something on the radio that someone didn't like, and they were a state official, and they pressured a bank to cancel your accounts just for your position. I mean, that's not the America we grew up in.
No, it's definitely not. And unfortunately, this is why we need term limits on every level of elected officials, because they keep getting reelected because they're paying people to vote for them in some cases, and it becomes, they become royalty, and make themselves out of reach from legal authorities.
And in this case, Mr. Hild, was this state official that pressured the banks, was she elected or appointed?
I don't know. I need to look into that, but she's the superintendent of financial services. That's probably not an elected position. She was probably appointed.
And they're even worse.
Higher official. So they're completely shielded from the electorate, which is one of the real problems that I think you're right to identify.
Too many laws are sort of started by those who were appointed. They're worse off than the elected ones.
The bureaucracy can rule.
Always.
Well, Mr. Hild, thank you so much for coming back, for stopping by, and please come back. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. Had a wonderful time. Anyone who'd like to learn more about us and our work can visit us at consumersresearch.org. That's consumersresearch.org. Or they can follow me on Twitter, or I guess it's X now, at Will Hild. That's WILLHILD.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.
Wonderful. Had a great time. Look forward to coming back.
All righty. That's Will Hild from Consumer Research, the oldest consumer organization in the country, and they're just saying no. And this is important because let's say, like the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can't destroy someone's life. That violates so many things. But if that's where they leave it, then other officials could do it knowing that they'll be slapped on the hand and they can destroy their political enemy's life. So this is very important. So we'll follow that. Well, let's take a quick break. You're listening to Radioactive. We'll be right back.